everyone. I hope you're hanging in and being kind to yourself. This week, we're going to dive into looking at REBT, but also exploring and pushing at our growing edge of counseling skills and diving into mesoskills. Let's take a look at what those are. Actually, before we get started, just a reminder to go ahead and review the CDCS and look at what the mesoskills are and how they are explored within that document, because as you get ready to now head to Residency 2, you will be working and exploring more of your mesoskills. So one of those skills is goal setting and planning for treatment. Often I will have early supervisees ask me, "Hey, Abby, like, how do I know when counseling is done? When do we decide that?" And a critical piece of this is in relation to something called goal setting. And in a counseling environment, particularly, let's say, within community mental health, goal setting is often attached to something called treatment planning. So I just wanted to take some time to define these words and how they link to some other terms, because they're often used interchangeably within the counseling environment. So when a client comes in and we give them an informed consent, and then we go over and get all their information, holistic information via an intake process, then we'll begin to set up some initial goals. As you know, often clients are coming in with very complex concerns. And so one of the skills that we need as counselors is how to set a goal, an initial goal. How can we take a very large issue and break it down into very minutia size goals that the client can work towards? And really, I want to encourage you to think about, especially while you're in school and really understanding what this means in a therapeutic context, to do some goal setting yourself. And what are some, maybe you want to run, maybe you want to, I don't know, read more books. I have a pile of books that I will get to eventually, despite buying more books, right? Because I love to read. But one way that I could work towards this is to say, Tuesday mornings, I'm going to spend 10 minutes reading one of those books. And that might help to get me into the swing of things. And the same can be said within a counseling context. Our clients often need some goals, some initial goals to help us focus our session. And that will, in turn, help us to progress through the therapeutic process, because once they reach those initial goals, then we can move on to defining the next set of goals. Typically in community mental health, this happens every 3 months or so. And as we're diving in deep with our clients, it becomes imperative that we're able to help focus the work that we're doing, because client issues are often so complex, we have to find ways using our active listening skills in order to help focus the client because of the complexity of their issue, right? So let's say, for example, I have somebody who comes in who's dealing with a lot of stress at work. That was I saw that as a role play several of you played in your week 2 role plays with each other. And also, by the way, a very common concern that has been showing up in my office, particularly since COVID, so a good one to work with as we're moving in this course. You can have, sort of what I would call the obvious way of focusing here. So you have somebody who's a real talker, and you need to come back to what you began with in terms of what they provided you and information-wise in the beginning of your intake process. Because often counseling will kind of journey off onto some side streets, if you will, metaphorically, as you're diving into the larger issue, you find out all these other uh, smaller concerns are attached to this larger concern. And yet, coming back to that initial goal can help you to focus when you feel like you're in this space as a counselor where you're like, are we still kind of doing the good work here? How do I know? And so I might say to the client, as the example says here, let's revisit some of the goals that we set. And see if they're still meaningful. I try to do that with my client actually every, I would say, 4 to 6 sessions, because goals will shift and change. You might say something like, it sounds like the job is really important to you today. Would it be helpful to focus on that? Because again, what if it's the job, the significant other, the book that they want to write? Where do you begin? And so it's helpful to you can help the client organize their thoughts by listing out all of the different topics that you've been exploring, but also to sort of AKA triage them, right? Like what's most salient in this moment to review now. And I will also say, pretty much every so often, do a little summary. We've been covering a lot today. Let's just recap what we've discussed, think about how this connects to where we should head. So, focusing and deepening the session. Along with that skill, there is pacing, directing, and summarizing the session. Sometimes you have clients come in, they have a lot of energy, and you need to slow them down. So you might need to use your nonverbals and modulate the tone of your voice, as I am right now. And actually, if you have a client who's experiencing a lot of anxiety, you can help to slow them down by modulating your voice in a low tone and slowing down the cadence with which you are speaking. And this can be hard to do. You go from one client where there's a lot of energy, and then you go to a client where there's no energy. One of the sort of aspects of the job that I had to come to work on was, scheduling clients. And you only have so much control because of everybody's schedule, but as much as possible to, I try to have sort of clients with high energy day, clients with low energy day, because it can be hard to switch sometimes in between sessions. And that's the importance of making sure that you finish up on time. Give yourself, if it's a 45, 50-minute session, make sure you're actually stopping on time to be able to, run to the bathroom, take a deep breath, etc. But making sure that you're pacing it. Let's take a moment to explore that feeling a bit more. And in connection with pacing is really just bringing the experience into the moment, into the here and now. I'm noticing in this moment with you that your voice is starting to raise, that you are speaking with high energy, at a much faster pace than you were a moment ago. And I'm curious what's happening for you internally, just as an example. So taking the time to pace the session, not let it go too fast or too slow, right? Goldilocks. We're looking for that Goldilocks. And of course, this is like having water in a bowl. You it sloshes from side to side, but we are just looking to provide to be that rock to keep it from sloshing over the sides, the water, if you will, And so I always, this is actually how mindfulness became a ritual, if you will, in my own therapeutic practice. So we always begin and end, and sometimes in between switching, let's say, from doing something that's more psychoeducational, where I'm in teaching mode, to back into processing or receptive mode. For directing, it would be helpful to revisit the goals we discussed. So again, the goals become a way that you can stay on track and understand where you've been and where you're going throughout the counseling process. And transitions can sometimes be difficult, even cognitively, right? To go from one topic to the other. Let me shake off. I was just talking about my mom. Now I want to talk about my husband. And also it can be helpful for, again, because us counselors, we're looking for themes in the client's life. We can look at how are there any themes, relational themes, feeling themes, things that they are really into. Uh, those kind of themes can become ways to help us transition from one topic to another. And here I have it listed out here as an example. So now that we've covered, talking about how your husband feels about you changing or shifting your career goals, shall we explore what this might look like within your friend group? I'm just offering that as an example in the moment. And finally, as we're sort of wrapping up and thinking about how we can deepen and pace and set goals, we're always making sure that we're guiding our practice with benevolence and non-malevolence. Oh, I can never say the word right. But essentially, we're making sure that the client is, that their well-being and growth and their psychological safety is at the forefront of our practice. It is still, if you look at the literature, the top 3 reasons that counselors lose their license: relationships with their clients, billing for services that didn't actually occur, or the paperwork wasn't right, so the insurance company thinks it didn't occur. Um, and I'm not actually sure what the third one is. I'll have to check, but I know it's relationships and billing are the top 2. And this is just to say, this is why it's so important to have a good supervisor and to be going over all of these aspects of the client's care on a daily basis to be able to make sure, even after your license, that you're providing the best care possible. And one of the ways that we do this is often by providing resources. My husband's always like, counselors have the biggest bags ever. We carry. I have all my books and my toys and my stuffed animals and so forth. And it's because I'm often providing different kind of interventions for clients to take as homework. And that's one way that I can also support being benevolent and helping them to promote their wellness and their growth. All right. I think, all right. So I think that's it for now. If you have any questions, again, don't reach out. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here for you. And I'm looking forward to seeing your next videos. Remember, it's nothing more than the 10,000 hour rule. Practice these skills with everybody you know until you don't even have to think about it anymore. Talk to you soon and be kind to yourself.